We've gathered together today on the 233rd anniversary of our nation's Declaration of Independence and the 500-year anniversary of John Calvin's birth. It is providential that we have an opportunity to celebrate these two events together, for indeed they are very much intertwined. Calvin is called the father of Presbyterianism, and Presbyterians led the charge in the first war for independence. This year, our heritage as Americans unites with our heritage as Presbyterians. Let's look at what Presbyterianism truly means and the part it played in the Revolution. I'll quote from a book by William Pratt Breed, written at the time of our country's centennial celebration. He says, quote, "Calvinism and Presbyterianism spring essentially from the same idea, the idea of government, of regularity, of order, the idea that God rules, that government is desirable, that things are and should be fixed and stable, that there is and should be law, that the affairs of the universe at large, the affairs of society, and the affairs of individuals should be founded on settled principles and should not be left to chance and haphazard. Calvinism is, in fact, a system of government, a method and form in which the divine power is put forth in the administration of the affairs of the universe. It is obvious, therefore, that our church government is in singular harmony with the spirit and form of government in both the state and nation." End quote. Does this not sound like an ideal American government? The kind of administration history tells us was formed in the 18th century, but which so little resembles our current administration? Mr. Breed goes on to talk about how Calvinism and its outworking of Presbyterianism made its journey through Europe, where it truly revolutionized every country it touched. He says, "Calvinism was revolutionary. By the side of the eternal mountains, the perennial snows, and narrow rivers of Switzerland, it established a government without a king. It was powerful in France. It entered Holland, inspiring an industrious nation with heroic enthusiasm. It penetrated Scotland and nerved its rugged but hardy envoy to resist the flatterers of Queen Mary. It infused itself into England and placed its plebeian sympathies in strong resistance to the courtly hierarchy. Inviting every man to read the Bible and teaching as a divine revelation the natural equality of man, it claimed freedom of utterance. It inspired its converts to cross the Atlantic and sail away from the traditions of the church, from hereditary power, from the sovereignty of earthly kings, and from all dominion but that of the Bible and such as arose from natural reason and equity." End quote. Our Presbyterian forefathers started the cry for independence. Calvinism, who fanned the fire of the Protestant Reformation, also struck the spark of the blaze of American independence. We may even know, I chose this topic today because most of us here already know that there are problems with the government. We may even know or think we know what should be done about those problems. We know that our liberty is in chains. Most of us have a desire to see Christians regain the freedoms bought by their redemption and to see God's law exalted in society. I urge you forward in these political and spiritual battles of the present by calling you back to your past. Discover your heritage. Mr. Breed wrote, "To the trumpet call of the Revolution, so universal and cordial was the response of Presbyterians that ardent devotees of King George, Lord North in Parliament, could scarce see anyone else in arms for the colonial cause but Presbyterians. Take possession of America's state. Why should Presbyterianism, which was so potent as to sweep a continent, throwing down tyrants and enlivening the people with their duty to God, be so powerless in our day? Is not God's sovereignty as strong and unchanging now that we should declare him sovereign above the governors of our nation? God has created with his people with unalienable rights, purchased through the blood of Christ. He has, through his word, declared his law. It was this knowledge that spurred Presbyterians, wherever they were to be found, to uproot any ruler that had surpassed his bounds. They did not revolt in contempt of government, but truly because they were commanded, as we are commanded, to uproot any ruler that had surpassed his bounds. And they were commanded to have but one sovereign. In obedience to him, we must let no other government declare their sovereignty over men." I will quote one last time from William Breed, again from his book in commemoration of the United States Centennial Celebration. He says of the times, "Of necessity, the national thought reverts to those stirring times that so grandly tried the souls of men and issued in the creation of this gigantic republic. Again on our eye flashes the light of those guns that laid the martyrs low on Lexington Green and at Concord Bridge. Again to our ear comes the report of the shot heard round the world. The heroic devotion of those men who, for the sake of principle, so calmly offered their breasts to the deadly laden hail, stirs with a fresh impulse the patriotic virtues within us, and lifts our manhood higher in our esteem. Anew there passes across the field of our vision that grand procession of sages and statesmen and military heroes, and we thank the God of nations of men so fitted for the need of such a day and hour. The bustle also of the town meeting breaks on the ear. We hear the broad-browed yeomen discussing the foundation principles of free government, and closing the discussion with the high resolve for liberty or death. The provincial Congress gathers and thrills the burning sentences that spring from the lips of an Adams or a Patrick Henry. The Continental Congress assembles, doubtful of its powers, uncertain as to what wisdom demands, hindered by countless obstacles, only one thing clear, and that is their inflexible determination not to submit to the tyrannies of the British King and his Parliament. For a time, apparent chaos reigns, but through all, the will of God is working toward order and organization, and the result is, first, victory in the field, second, a confederacy of the colonies, and third, that wonderful embodiment of human ability and ripe statesmanship, the national Constitution. This is our heritage. This is our God of nations who gave courage to the soldier and wisdom to the statesman. Have we not reason to believe that God will be with us in the necessity of a present-day political and spiritual reformation? God alone gave us the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and He will be with us as we fight for those rights in the establishment of God's law and society. Let not the teaching of Calvin and the shed blood of our Presbyterian forefathers be for naught. Again I charge you, remember your heritage. Let our cry be that of King David in the 119th Psalm, verses 44 to 46. I will always obey your law, forever and ever. I will walk about in freedom, for I have sought out your precepts. I will speak of your statutes before kings and will not be put to shame.